Now, Washington mornings on the Mall. 105.9 FM. And AM 630. WMAL.
It is 7:07 on WMAL, where Washington comes to talk. Brian Wilson here, Brian Neiman. We're sort of in Wednesday, which is sort of sit-and-wait mode, because we all know that in this town, Thursday's going to be a huge day, what with the Supreme Court coming down with Obamacare, and also there's going to be a vote in the House of Representatives about whether or not the Attorney General should be found in contempt of Congress. So big doings this week. We'll have a full team on the steps of the Supreme Court tomorrow to bring us coverage from there. Right now, we want to turn to KT McFarland, our good friend, a Fox News National Security Analyst. KT, we got lots to talk about here today. I want to start with sort of what I consider to be a flashpoint, perhaps in the making, between Syria and Turkey. Just to recap briefly, Syrians shot down a Turkish F-4 that incurred briefly into its airspace, but by the time it was shot down, it was over international waters. This seems to be the making of an international incident. What's going to happen there, and should we be concerned?
Yeah, we should be concerned. Why? Because Turkey is a NATO member. We're a NATO member. Turkey, though, has handled this quite conservatively. They've called for a NATO meeting, which is their right, and they've called for the meeting under Article 4. That's the article that says if one of us is attacked, we will all consult with each other to see what we do next. Article 5, which they could have called, they did not. Article 5 is what we used after September 11th, and that's if one of us is attacked, we're all attacked, and we will all respond militarily. So the Turks are taking this quietly, slowly, but surely. Now, what are they likely to ask from the Syrians? What are they likely to demand? My guess is they'll say, we'd like a zone, a free zone, in Syria, but on the Turkish border, because the Turks have said, if you start moving troops towards our border, we'll take that as a very aggressive, potentially active war. So what might happen out of this is that a stupid Syrian mistake on their part, it will allow NATO/Turkey to maybe have a zone, like a no-fly zone or a free zone, on the Turkish-Syrian border, which will allow the beginnings of it'll allow physical space and territory for a Syrian rebel army to build. Because so far, there's been no territory in Syria that a rebel army could take hold of.
But the Turkish foreign minister has acknowledged that at least briefly the aircraft incurred into Syrian airspace. Isn't that a problem for the Syrians? I mean, don't they have the right to respond in a situation? I mean,
yeah, but
nobody thinks the Syrians are good guys, but
no.
I mean, but if somebody incurred into our airspace, we would have the right to respond.
Yeah, but look at the neighborhood. I mean, Syria doesn't have a lot of friends in that neighborhood. And so Syria, they may say, and it's like a bunch of lawyers arguing, who's got real possession of this territory and who's the stronger guy in the fight, and that's going to be Turkey and NATO Response. Last thing the Syrian leadership wants is NATO to come down on them. And frankly, the last thing NATO wants, we don't want another ground war in the Middle East. So perhaps this will be resolved by tensions will reduce, but at the end of the day, there may be some physical space for a Syrian rebel army that the Turks would aid, that could go in Syrian territory and use that as the base of operations. I mean, look, the whole area is a tinderbox, and one match thrown into that could cause a real crisis and a fire, and it could escalate quite quickly. But at the end of the day, Syria has powerful friends, not necessarily in the region, but powerful friends like Russia and Iran. It also is a country which is under siege right now in a lot of ways diplomatically, as well as fighting a civil war. So I don't think they want to escalate tensions. And we certainly, NATO, we've already had how many land wars in the region that haven't gone so well?
Well, but if you were looking for an opening to do something in Syria, this would be it. And
this would be the make my day moment. This would be, okay, you hit me, I'm coming back at you. You hit me, come to a knife fight, I got a gun. So yes, if anyone was looking to have a military engagement with Syria, this would be an opening to do so, but I just don't think anybody really is.
The Prime Minister the Prime Minister of Turkey, I believe his quote was, "Beware of the wrath of Turkey," to Syria.
Yeah.
Is there anything they want out of Syria, though?
What they want is a bigger picture. What they initially wanted, say, flash back about a year and a half ago, is that Turkey thought that it could be the honest broker. It honestly thought that they had a special relationship with Assad, that they could, sort of bring him into the modern world, could stop the killing. That's not worked.
Right.
Assad is going to kill or be killed, and he's not listening to anybody. Turkey's goal in this, just think about where they've come from. Turkey 20 years ago was a struggling, poor country. Turkey today is an economic powerhouse. Turkey 10 years ago, a member of NATO, wanted to become a member of the European Union, like the White Boys Club. And what happened was the European Union said no. So Turkey at that point said, okay, well, I'm going to look in the other direction. I'm going to look to the Muslim world, where I also have a foot, and I'm going to try to be a leader in that world. So I think the Turks want to transfer their economic prowess now into a bigger regional presence. The most powerful country in the region, it's not too big a thing as to say they'd love to have the Ottoman Empire back.
Senator John McCain, a bunch of Republican senators, 31 of them, have signed a letter saying we need an independent counsel to investigate national security leaks. We have Joseph Lieberman also on board with that idea. Other Democrats, so they don't go as far as to call for a special counsel, have expressed a great deal of concern about a number of national security leaks. What needs to happen here?
Well, boys, I just want to remind you that 3 or 4 weeks ago when I said that this is going to end up in a call for a special prosecutor, and you were scratching your heads thinking I was nuts. At the end of the day, this I think has legs. It's a potential constitutional crisis even, because if you take the Fast and Furious, the holder in contempt of Congress, and now you have additional leaks where the administration it says we don't have a problem, they're not coming from us, but I think everybody knows they were coming from the White House. So what happens? I mean, these are serious national security leaks, and in the case of Fast and Furious, misguided policy. And the criticism is not just partisan criticism coming from Republicans on Capitol Hill to a Democratic president. It's bipartisan. When you have the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Senator Dianne Feinstein, who's very well respected by all sides, she's a grown-up. And if she's come out and said this is the most damaging thing that she's ever seen, then I think that it's not something that'll be brushed under the rug. So whether there's an independent prosecutor, investigator called, we'll see what the current investigators come up with. And if they come up and say, look, we can't find any leakers, or they stall for time, then I think that Congress will act.
Well, the letter that was released yesterday by these Republicans, I mean, they pretty much said Thomas Donnellan is on their radar as somebody who they think is the leaker on this. If that's the case, can't they figure that out rather quickly if they think it was Donnellan? I mean, they already have a suspect in mind. Well, again,
I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to tell you the legal ins and outs, but having been in the White House during Watergate and at the Pentagon during the Iran-Contra, Congress can do whatever it wants to do. I mean, they can have they've got subpoena power, they can have special
Well, yeah, but I'm talking about James Clapper, who's director of the National Intelligence, right? Can't he just say, can he call Donnellan in his office and figure it out? Or maybe he doesn't want to go down that route?
Well, they want to figure it out. That this is going to be a question of whoever did it, I've got to assume has already found a lawyer for himself. And once that starts happening, then everybody sort of runs for the hills and finds lawyers. If it is coming, maybe there's not a crime. Maybe the president directed whoever did the leaking to do the leaking. The president can declassify any document he wants. But then I think it becomes a political issue.
Yes, it does. Absolutely.
Are we willing to trade lives here and reveal ongoing intelligence operations in order to curry political favor? Are we trading lives for votes here? Then I think it becomes a political crisis.
All right, KT. We'll talk to you later. Thank you.